How's it going, everybody? We are back for episode 5. No guest this week, just me, your favorite host, Jake Aiello. We are excited for episode number 5. I don't know why I said we, but I am very excited. Television Sports Organization is also very excited to bring you another episode of this fabulous baseball podcast. So we're just going to jump right into the news segment, of course, as we always do. With a bit of good news this week, we got Ronald Acuna Jr. coming back from his tragic ACL injury last year that caused him to miss out on the World Series run. He was reinstated at the end of last month. He missed 9 months with that injury. In his first game back, he went 1 for 5, so a bit of a slow start in the box, but he did steal 2 bases, so you can tell he still got that speed. Not flashing that power as of right now, but that will come, I'm sure. He's one of the best players in the MLB. We all know this. He's the best player on me and my friends' franchise team and MLB The Show. He's an absolute dog in the video game, puts up video game numbers in real life. And he stole those 2 bases, as I said, so he's got that speed coming off that tragic knee injury, which is definitely hard to come back from if you're, a speed type of guy. He's played 3 games total. He's only had 2 hits and 13 at-bats. Like I said, he's a slow start, but we're expecting everything and more out of Ronald Acuna Jr., and I'm sure we'll get it. In his rehab assignment, he played 6 games in AAA Gwinnett, and he batted .368 with 3 stolen bases. So, flashing that speed, played a good right field. There was a social media moment that's not in this show, but he actually dapped up a fan in Gwinnett, and I just think that's very exciting if you're going to a Gwinnett game and you just get to see Ronald Acuna Jr. No shade to the AAA guys. I also saw a AAA guy post Acuna on his Instagram because he was excited to see him. So we are all excited to see him back. I'm sure Atlanta's excited to see him back. They're not playing really great right now. I think they're under 500, bottom half of the league in batting average, RBI, and stolen bases. And these are all areas that we can expect to see Acuna, excelling in areas that we can see him really helping this team out. Because, any team's going to miss the best player in the MLB, no matter how good you are. So, on the other note, we are going to another ACL injury, but this time it's Alberto Mondesi of the Royals. He recently tore his ACL on March 26th against the White Sox on a series of pickoff attempts. He had a bit of an awkward get back. He kind of outstretched his knee, maybe hyperextended it, and then stealing, kind of re-injured it again. So he's on the IL as of now, and it's presumed that he's going to be missing the rest of the season. He's had injury concerns since coming into the league in 2018. He's hit the IL 7 times, I believe. So, he's a great fielder, one of the fastest guys in the MLB. But, he's got injury concerns. He can't really stay healthy. And he's also entering the last year of arbitration this year. So we could see his last year in Kansas City. Kansas City could keep him on, just seeing how he progresses, how he heals, how he kind of treats his injury going forward. If he's making good progress, they might keep him on again. But as I said, we might have seen his last game in Kansas City. He's one of the fastest players in the MLB, always top of the league in steals. As I said, great fielder. Great fielders are a premium in the MLB. He had a great stretch from 2018 to 2020, and he led the league in stolen bases in 2020. As I said, he's that speed guy that a team can really benefit off of, and he's pretty young. I'm pretty sure he's around 26, 27. So he's got a lot of room to grow, and like we saw Acuna come back from this injury, Acuna's a better hitter, a bigger power hitter, but they both rely on speed for a decent amount of their playing ability. So we hope that Alberto Mondesi can come back stronger from this injury. Next, we got the brawl between the New York Mets and the St. Louis Cardinals last Wednesday. Pitcher Yan Lopez threw a pitch by Nolan Arenado's head. And Arenado, he didn't take too kindly to that, started yelling at him. He told Lopez to do it again. I really don't think he wants him to do it again because I would not like a 90-something mile per hour fastball go screaming by my head. But Arenado's a tough guy. He seems like a pretty crazy guy. Really, really competitive, really great baseball player. But this play came in retaliation after J.D. Davis was hit in the foot, and he had to leave the game. He missed a couple of games. He's back now, I'm pretty sure. But he was on the IL for a bit with that foot injury. And a stat I saw was the Mets have been hit 20 times this season, which is the most. So 20 times over 20-something games. That's kind of insane. I guess they just, they got some ice over there, so they're willing to take the base runners. And then also this name is elite, Hall of Fame name right here. We got Stubby Clapp. Stubby Clapp tackled Pete Alonso from behind, and he also was ejected. It's kind of like the moment we saw with Albert Pujols and former Yankees coach when David Ortiz and a former Yankee coach when Ortiz shoved the coach to the ground. These coaches care a lot. These coaches, even if they're older, they're really invested in the game. They really are there for their team. They're really standing up for their team. So, it was a bit of a moment that we had there in the New York Mets St. Louis game. New York Mets pitcher Chris Bassett blamed the balls and had some choice words for the MLB, saying that they changed the balls so the grips are different. You're getting different balls between every inning. First inning, second inning, he said you get a good ball. Third inning, you get a bad ball. So he was just really angry with the lack of consistency. And furthermore, on the Mets side, Buck Showalter is actually suspended one game for throwing at someone, as they usually do. And then Yon Lopez was suspended 3 games, as usually the player gets more game suspension. So, that passed. Mets are looking good. Cardinals are all right, but it was a hot moment between those two clubs. More serious news, we got Trevor Bauer's 2-year suspension. The MLB suspended him for 324 games, which is about 2 seasons. Bauer, of course, announced that he was appealing it as he's maintaining his innocence in the cases that have been brought before the MLB in terms of, sexual assault. There was another woman that came out with a sexual assault the day of the 2-year suspension being announced. He was never convicted in a criminal court, but the MLB, they're their own private company. They decided to look into the matter and suspend him going forward for those 2 seasons. He spent 100 games off the field between the Dodgers, with the Dodgers. And he doesn't get credit for that time. So he's going to be missing around 425 games, which is a lot of games. Hasn't played since 2019. He will miss his entire contract with the Dodgers. It was 3 years, and he is going to be suspended for, the duration of that contract. And he cannot be traded until his suspension is up. So the Dodgers really can't get anything out of him. I don't really think that's the point. I don't really think it's a baseball move. I don't really care if the Dodgers can't get anything out of him. If he was, in these predicaments where he was doing these things to women, obviously we do not condone these kind of things that are happening. So it's more of a person thing than a baseball thing. So if he's got to serve a suspension. He wasn't convicted, as I said, but the MLB has their own priorities. I'm not gonna complain with this suspension. The MLB does what it finds it needs to be doing, and I agree with it. The NFL has gotten a lot of flack for stuff with domestic violence, sexual assault, all that stuff, and the NFL has gotten a really bad image for it. So I think the MLB, doing a great job at. They also have a new domestic violence policy. They're really trying to crack down on these really bad instances of sexual assault and domestic violence. So props to them. We go back to the Mets with their combined no-hitter earlier this week. We got Tyler McGill, who's off to a fantastic start with the Mets since DeGrom has been out. He started the game. Then they went to the bullpen with Drew Smith, Joely Rodriguez, Seth Lugo, and Edwin Diaz, who secured the combined no-hitter. Diaz struck out the side in the ninth to secure the no-no. And I'm pretty sure all the other relievers were kind of getting iced up in the trainer's room, were really on the field. They weren't really thinking about it. And then they had to come back out in the field to celebrate. Of course, it's the second no-hitter in Mets history behind Johan Santana in 2012, who was an absolute dog for the Mets, probably their best pitcher of all time. I remember they were wearing the throwback now 2012 jerseys. It was just a different time, man. I was 12 years old. My friends were big Mets fans. They love the Mets. They love Johan. They love Jose Reyes, Carlos Beltran. But as a Yankee fan, we do appreciate the error that was Carlos Delgado made that let the Yankees win that game. That's all I can remember pretty much about that time in MLB history. It was the 17th combined no-hitter in history, so not a big club. There's a lot more single-pitcher no-hitters, but combined no-hitters is pretty special because you got all these different pitchers, all these different moving parts. You got to keep them on the top of their game. And it was the most pitches in a no-hitter of all time with 159. That is a lot of pitches. I think a usual game is probably around 110. If you see pitchers, going complete games, it's usually around 100. I mean, like 90 is 10 pitches an inning, so that's kind of not a lot. So, usually 110 is where you really see it, but almost 160 pitches. And I saw that they also blasted DMX after the game, New York legend, New York native, rest in peace to X, DMX, the Mets got you. And just thanks for hyping up the Mets getting that combined no-hitter. On some more pitching news, we got Clayton Kershaw earns the most strikeouts in Dodgers history. He struck out rookie Spencer Torkelson in the fourth inning of Saturday's game against the Tigers. 52,000 fans giving him a standing ovation. He was very thankful for it. He raised his hand, thanked the crowd and everything. He passed Hall of Famer Don Sutton for the franchise record. Don Sutton did not live to see this. He passed away last year, but he did hold the record for a very long time. I believe it was around 50 years. And yeah, because Sutton got the record in 1979. So what is that? 43-ish years, unless I'm doing my math wrong, or 53-ish years. 49 years or something. Yeah, we don't do math. We journalize. We do journalism over here. We're not great with the math, but a long time. And the top 5 pitchers are Don Sutton, Don Drysdale, Sandy Koufax, Dazzy Vance, and Clayton Kershaw. All the other 4 that are retired are Hall of Famers, so Clayton Kershaw should find himself in the Hall of Fame, regardless of this accomplishment. But that top 5 list looks pretty dang good if you're getting 5 Hall of Famers on the top strikeout list for the Dodgers. Great illustrious program. We know the history of the Dodgers. And now Kershaw's 26 all-time in strikeouts, and he is 4th among active pitchers behind Scherzer, Verlander, and Greinke. And he is younger than all these pitchers by around 3 years, so we could see him catch up to them if they do retire going forward. And he has a couple great years left in him. And to the college level with pitching, we go to Ryan Ramsey of my University of Maryland, throwing a perfect game. Perfect game. He earned the perfect game in a 13-0 win over Big Ten not rival, but also in the Big Ten, Northwestern. He's the 33rd player in NCAA history to throw a perfect game, and he's the first Maryland pitcher since Dick Wrights in 1959 with a perfect game. My high school was founded in 1959, so that is a very long time ago. And I know there's been great Maryland teams. 2015 was a great Maryland team. 2019, I believe, or 2018, they made the tournament. So they've had a couple great teams, but no pitcher like Ryan Ramsey. He struck out 10 batters on 118 pitches. So like I said, complete game around 110 pitches. That was a pretty good estimate by me. He was drafted out of high school in the 36th round in 2019, but he decided to go to University of Maryland. It's his first year as a full-time starter, and he has a 10-1 record with a 2.42 ERA, having a crazy year. It's also a great year for Maryland because they are, at the time of recording, 35-9, and is their second best record of all time behind the 2015 team, as I referenced. But there are 11 games left, so they could breach that 36 win mark. And fun fact about Ryan Ramsey went to Pascack Hills High School in northern New Jersey in the Patriot League in Group 2. Or Group 3, I don't remember. But I went to Mawa High School. We were in the same division, so we played against him. We played against him the year that his team, Pascack Hills, won the states. They were the best team in the country, or in the state, in our group. They lost one game, and they lost one game to our team. And then we also played them a second time. We should have won, but he came in the 9th, or the 7th, actually, and I got a base hit off of him. So I am batting 1,000 off of Ryan Ramsey, who threw a perfect game. And I don't think any other journalist can tell you that, so usually when I see him doing well in Maryland or if he gets drafted, I'm like, I got hit off of him. I'm batting 1,000, so therefore I am an MLB caliber player. It's just something I like to tell myself when I cover baseball. So, it reminds me of my athletic days. But we're going to jump to the Yankees and Mets. Not really news, but just saying they're the top of their leagues right now. Yankees 17-6 have won 10 in a row. They swept the Guardians, Orioles, Royals, and they beat the Blue Jays yesterday. They are first in home runs, 6th in RBIs, 5th in batting average, 3rd in slugging, 3rd in OPS, and really getting carried by a great year from Anthony Rizzo and Aaron Judge. Just, they're going to be first in home runs. They're going to be up there in RBIs. I'm pretty surprised that they're fifth in batting average, with their strikeout home run tendencies, especially with Joey Gallo kind of bringing that average down. But, IKF's been having a great year. Donaldson's all right. But, those two guys, as I said, really carrying that team to their first place position. And also, got to give love to the bullpen pitching rotation. They're second in ERA and fifth in strikeouts. We got Garrett Cole looking better than when he started. Luis Severino looking okay. And Nestor Cortez looking like an absolute stud in New York, looking like the true ace in New York City and the Bronx. Excuse me. I'm still getting over those allergies. I'm a lot better, I swear. It would be a lot less coughing. But anyway, we go to the Mets. They're 16-8. They have been struggling their last 10. They're 6-4 in their last 10. They've won their last 4 series. They're batting .262, which is second in the MLB in average. They got Jeff McNeil, who's been an on-base absolute machine this year. Francisco Lindor is having a great year compared to last year. Pete Alonso, is just going to be an absolute menace at the dish, going to hit absolute bombs. Home run champion. And Starling Marte coming over in free agency, looking like the speed demon, looking like the stellar center fielder, looking like the contact machine that he was before in Miami. Mets are first in hits, third in RBIs, first in OBP, and fourth in OPS, similar to the Yankees, just absolutely clubbing. And their pitching is also up there, third in ERA, second in strikeouts, second in WHIP, and second in opponent average. You really can't be a great team in the MLB if you can't limit other teams' best hitters. So both of these teams, up there in strikeouts, up there in ERA. It's just a great year in the tri-state area for us in New Jersey, New York. We're just really excited at what the Yankees and Mets are doing this year. Yankees have been underperforming, and so have the Mets in recent years. But, as long as we're both up there, Yankees and Mets fans can get along until the World Series, the Subway Series, which is what we're hoping for this year. We got 2 more stories. We got also in Mets news. The Mets are in a lot of news this week, if I'm being honest. Very newsworthy this week. Robinson Cano was designated for assignment. He's 39 years old. He's owed $45 million from the contract with the Seattle Mariners. He was hitting under 200 this year with a 501 OPS, so very, very not good numbers. You saw time at DH this year, and if you're DH, you're designated hitter, and you're not hitting well, you're not going to see a lot of time in the MLB, especially if you're at an older age, and these teams need to reduce their players with the recent rule from 28 to 26. So, Dom Smith, Travis Jankowski, they were on the chopping block about getting sent down, but Robinson Cano is a lot older, as I said, and not really performing, so they decided to keep Dom Smith, who's actually been having a pretty good, solid recent games. Keeping Jankowski and Jeff McNeil, as I said, is one of the best hitters in the MLB right now, contact hitters. Cano's likely done with the Mets because they designated him for assignment. And I'd like to see him come back to the Yankees. It was tragic when he left in 2012, 2013. But, the Yankees will always do with a power lefty bat. He could back up in the infield or be a DH. Another lefty bat, as I said, that the Yankees love. So I think he could bring some value. And, the short porch resurrects careers, man. I'm telling you. Just come back to New York, Robinson Cano. We'll welcome you with open arms. Even my friend that threw an absolute fit in middle school. But shout out Garrett, threw a fit when he was traded or when he signed with the Mariners. But I'll gladly take you back. So finally, we got Kelsey Whitmore, was the first woman to start in an MLB partner league. She had played in games before, but it was her first start in the Atlantic League. And the Atlantic League is actually where they do a lot of experimenting with umpires and stuff. It's a very progressive league. I enjoy it, especially with having their first women start a game. She started in left field for the Staten Island Ferry Hawks against the Gastonia Honey Eaters on Monday. And I love all these minor league affiliated league team names. You like Ferry Hawks and Honey Eaters. Like, let's go. That's hilarious. But she went 0 for 2 and she was hit by a pitch. She stuck it out in there. She's actually a two-way player. She can pitch and play the outfield, but got to start in left field for that game. And she's only 23 years old, and she is a women's national baseball player. So congrats to Kelsey Whitmore for breaking that glass ceiling, getting in the MLB affiliated league. We're excited to see what she can do going forward. And congratulations to her and to women all over. Women can do anything a man can do, of course. Be in the MLB, succeed in the MLB, and just do great things. So congratulations. And that was our news for the week. We are going to jump back in with some bad beats also, and we're going to get to our Young Gun of the Week, so we'll be right back. We're back. We are going to jump into the bad beats. Forgot to do that in the opening, but we're going to go right into it. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone has those days. Shout out Miley Cyrus. Shout out Hannah Montana. Also, shout out Danny DeVito. I said I was the only host out here, but he does fill in with some sports takes of his own. So thank you, Danny, for joining us, of course. So in terms of picks this week, we had another great week. I think it was our best week yet. We finished 63-33. I really think you guys should follow these picks, man. You'd be in a really good spot if you were to pick with your boy Jake, the host. We were 13-2 on Tuesday and 10-3 on Thursday. Really carried our week. We were not under 500 any other day, but these were our best days on Tuesday and Thursday. And just some bad beats that we got. Some of the minimal amount of losses we had. There was a couple bad beats that you win some, you lose some. As I said, everybody has those days, So some bad beats we had were the Diamondbacks split the series with the Cardinals. I had the Cardinals winning all the games. Arizona won the second and third game, won 2 in a row. Bumgarner outpitched Adam Wainwright in game 2. Shout out to our old heads, term of endearment, of course. Bumgarner really getting it done. Wainwright had a decent game, but Madison Bumgarner, great pitcher in his prime, still a great pitcher, and one of the best hitting pitchers in the MLB. But he doesn't hit anymore. But, he did the job on the mound. We also got Merrill Kelly, who's looking like a stud. He had a great game in Game 3. He outpitched Miles Mikolas, who has also been great for the Cardinals. But Merrill Kelly has been looking exceptional this year. St. Louis lineup could only score 2 runs total in 2 games. So, the pitching was decent, but the hitters really weren't there for their pitching rotations. Goldschmidt went 1 for 7 in the series, and Arenado only went 1 for 4 because he only played 1 game out of those 2 games. And Goldschmidt went 1 for 7 out of those 2 games they lost, is what I meant to say. St. Louis also got 2 hit in Game 3 against Merrill Kelly, and they only had 7 total hits in those 2 games. And the D-backs beat the Dodgers twice and the Mets twice. So I got to give the Diamondbacks more credit. As I said, their pitching rotation is looking absolutely incredible this year. So maybe we will pick them going forward. Probably not, but I'll give them more weight in my mental math when I'm coming up with the picks. Next, we got the Orioles winning 2 of 3 against Boston. Man, I had Boston way higher in my mind early in the year. They're not looking great, not nearly as good as my Yankees. Let's go. And Blue Jays and the Rays are looking okay. So Boston's not looking great, even with the addition of Trevor Bauer. Their pitching is not looking too spectacular. Boston lost Game 2 in horrible fashion, an error when Hiro Sawamura had a throwing error on a bunt. As I say always, my coach says if they're bunting, they are giving you an out, and Sawamura just could not get the out. Robinson Chirinos dropped a bunt for the Orioles, and Sawamura just absolutely sailed it over at third. The Orioles tied it in the 9th earlier on a Santander single, and then they walked off on that error. It was a great outing from Nathan Eovaldi, but it was spoiled by this blunder in the 9th inning. Game 3 was won by the bats with the Orioles. Santander went 2 for 3 with 3 RBIs, and backup first baseman Tyler Nevin had his only hit of the season thus far and drove in 2 runs. Shout out him. Shout out Mr. Nevin. But of course, his only hit is at the expense of my picks. Jorge Mateo also drove in 2. It was the most runs scored all season to that point when they scored 9. And Nick Pivetta has not looked very good thus far pitching for the Red Sox as he starts his season 0-4. And finally, we go to the Nationals winning 2 over the Giants. Giants, not the team they were last year, but still a very strong team. And the Nationals are not a great team. They're going to be at the bottom of the NL East this year, especially with the Mets looking absolutely amazing. So Nationals won Game 1 and Game 3 in San Francisco. It was their only 2 wins in the last 11 games they played. They handed Alex Wood his only loss so far in the first game. Alex Wood also looking good. He just decided he didn't have it that game. Nationals put up 14 runs on 22 hits, and they used 6 pitchers. So just absolutely clubbing from the Nationals. The Nationals' bottom 3 totaled 7 of their RBIs. And I understand the bottom of the order. It might not be your worst hitters, guys you really want to turn over the lineup, most likely contact hitters, but they are driving in 7 RBIs, driving in half the runs just from the bottom 3. And I probably should have weighed this in before, doing my picks, but the Giants were kind of ravaged with COVID-19, didn't have Belt, Peterson, Yaz, just really took a toll on their lineup. And then in the third game, the Nationals put up 11 runs on 12 hits, so just absolutely driving in an incredible amount of runs for a Nationals team that's, not really the strongest at bat. They had 12 hits. Yadiel Hernandez had his best career game, I would like to think, had 5 RBIs. He was our best in the box for yesterday or the day before. Giants were still ravaged by COVID. They used 7 pitchers in that game, and Josiah Gray had one of his best outings thus far. So excited for Nationals fans, excited for my friend who got a nice pitcher out of Josiah Gray in the trades where they sent out their stars. So, good for the Nationals, not good for me. So we're just going to go to Young Gun right now. Young Gun of the week, we got Pablo Lopez, 26 years old pitcher for the Marlins. He won NL Pitcher of the Month for April. Had another stellar outing against the Nationals. He earned the win on 6 innings pitched, 3 hits, 6 strikeouts, and 0 earned runs. He has not allowed a run in the last 3 games, and he's allowed just 10 hits on 17 strikeouts. He's only allowed 1 run all year, and that was in his first start, but he only allowed 3 hits in that game. So, letting up a run, but only 3 hits, minimizing base runners, minimizing hits, just maximizing his potential. In 23 innings pitched, he's only allowed 13 hits. He's got the highest WAR in the MLB, and he's shown steady improvement since 2018. He's lowered his ERA, his opponent average, and WHIP after coming off an injury in 2019-2020 to the rotator cuff. Shout out Pablo Lopez for really helping Marlins exceeding expectations this year. Next, we got Ke'Bryan Hayes, third baseman of the Pirates, 25 years old. He went 6 for his last 17 with a double and 2 RBIs this week. He's leading the Pirates in hits, doubles, and the Pirates are third in the MLB in doubles thanks to Ke'Bryan Hayes because they don't really lead in a lot of other, categories. So shout out to him for really, getting them up there in those standings. He also leads in walks, stolen bases, average, and WAR. So pretty much the best player on the Pirates by far. One of the youngest, really promising. Got that contract from the Pirates this year. Pirates haven't looked terrible. Not a great team. They're third in the NL Central. They're ahead of the Cubs and the Reds. Cubs are young. Don't really expect much from them. They started off really hot, and the Reds are just very bad. I'm sorry. Jonathan India's out. They really have nothing going as of now. But, Pirates still coming in at third above those 2 teams. Ke'Bryan Hayes leads third baseman in putouts, assists, and first in chance. He's first in putouts and assists, and in chances, and he's top 5 in fielding percentage. So we know he's a really great third baseman, one of the best in the league, and he's third in defensive WAR behind Machado, who I actually, doing this research, compared him to Manny Machado. Great, well-rounded, stellar third baseman, putting up similar numbers to Manny Machado in his age 24 season. Manny Machado had been playing, more years. I think he was playing about 4 or 5 years before his age 24 season. Ke'Bryan Hayes hasn't really gotten that much time, but they are looking similar. But Manny Machado definitely has more power in his bat. But Ke'Bryan Hayes is showing a bit of power now, and Hayes has a higher WAR. He had a higher WAR in his age 24 season. He means a lot more to that team because the Pirates, I don't think, are as good as the Orioles were at that time for Manny Machado. So shout out Ke'Bryan Hayes. Really exciting to watch in the Pirates. You're always excited to see him make a play. He's one of those guys like Nolan Arenado, balls hit to him. You're excited to see what happens. So shout out Ke'Bryan. Finally, we got Logan Gilbert, who I believe won this a couple weeks ago. So this is his second Young Gun of the Week of this season. It was his 3rd straight scoreless outing. He won Young Gun, as I said earlier. He was the AL Pitcher of the Month, just like Pablo Lopez was the NL Pitcher of the Month. He had 2 starts this week. He earned 2 wins, pitched 10 innings, only allowed 5 hits and 1 earned run and 12 strikeouts. Striking out a lot of guys, not letting up a lot of hits, and not letting up a lot of runs. I don't really, the numbers speak for themselves. He's looking like an absolute ace in Seattle. His ERA sits at .64, and he's got a 4-0 record, which are both best in the MLB. Just a young guy, a really promising pitcher. He's looking great for the Mariners, and he's got a .93 WHIP and an opponent batting average of 188, and he's got the 3rd highest WAR in all the MLB. It's behind Machado, I think. So, congrats, Logan Gilbert, just looking like an absolute missile on the mound. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. Really, really taken a leap forward this year. So, congratulations to those 3 guys. We are going to move to Old Head of the Week next. Now we are jumping into our Old Head of the Week. As I always say, like I said earlier in the show, it's a term of endearment for people doing such a great job at an old age. And we're doing the cutoff at 30, I decided, just so we can include, a lot of people in the young gun and the old head, covering really everyone. 30 is not old in the grand scheme of life, but in terms of the MLB, it's kind of old. Not really, but I think it's a good place to put the cutoff. So we're going to start with Miles Mikolas. He's 33 years old. He had 2 starts this week, went 14 innings with 2 earned runs and 12 Ks. Not a ton of strikeouts, but only 2 earned runs in 7 innings is pretty dang good. He let up no earned runs to the NL top Mets, so he's pitching good innings, has good numbers against good teams. It's what you like to see. He was an all-star in 2018 after winning 18 games with a 2.83 ERA. Stellar numbers. I believe he had the highest winning percentage in 2018 as well. 2019, he took a bit of a hit. He earned the most losses in the MLB, so a really, really big 180 from 2018. He was 9-14 with an ERA over 4. Bit of a struggle. And then in 2021, he had a forearm strain, which limited him to only 44 innings pitched in that year. But this year, he's coming back better than ever. He's looking fantastic, one of the best pitchers in the league right now. He's also spent a handful of years in the KBO and overseas, 2015, 2016, and 2017 in the KBO. I think he was 31-13 with a 2.18 ERA. So a really great pitcher, really anywhere he goes. And he's really proving it this year. So far, he has a 1.52 ERA through 5 starts, which is the most starts in the MLB this year. So most consistent pitcher over the most innings right now. He's a very solid number 2 with Flaherty still out. And I just wanted to mention this dude's mustache is incredible. His mustache is probably better than his pitching ability. Mustaches are always a fan favorite. I love them. I'm a fan of just the mustache, not the beard, but I need the beard. It looks good. But, just an overall fan of his playing style and his facial hair. Next, we're going to go to Jeff McNeil. On the younger side, he's 30, so just the cutoff for Old Head of the Week. He was 11 for 22 this week with 5 doubles, 3 RBIs, and he's helped leading the Mets as the NL's top team right now, as we mentioned before, with my Yankees. He leads the Mets in hits, OBP, slugging, and OPS. Pretty much every major hitting category, he's doing it for the Mets right now. He's near the top of the league in hits, doubles, batting average, OBP, slugging, and OPS. So not just the top of the Mets. I mean, the Mets are at the top, so if you're topping the Mets, you're probably topping the entire league. He's either first and second in all of those categories, as I mentioned, hits, doubles, batting average, OBP, slugging, OPS for second baseman. With Jazz Chisholm, who's also having a wonderful year. We had him in our Young Gun of the Week last week, so those two are looking very good, as one of them is young and one of them is on the older side. McNeil's got the 3rd highest WAR for second base, behind Tyler O'Neill and Jazz Chisholm, who Tyler O'Neill, we don't even need to get into him. Just an absolute dog at second base for the Cardinals. And he's been a consistent hitter, a very good fielder for the Mets since 2018. He did have a down year last year, similarly to the Mets. Maybe it's a bit of a calling card of what the Mets are going to do is how Jeff McNeil is playing. But we're happy to see him having a great year this year. We only have 2 Old Head of the Week this week. 1 pitcher, 1 batter. So shout out to those guys. Shout out to Jeff McNeil. Shout out to Miles Mikolas for the mustache. and the stellar batting attributes for the top of the league Mets. So next we're going to go to our surprises of the week. We have three. We have two good surprises and one not as good surprise. So we'll get right back into it after this. As promised, we got our surprises of the week. I could not include Taylor Ward for the Los Angeles Angels, who is playing absolutely out of his mind. He earned the MLB Player of the Week. Great minds think alike. MLB, please hire me. I need a job. But, Player of the Week in the MLB, also surprise of the week here. He was 12 for 29 this week with 3 doubles, 4 home runs, a triple, and 11 RBIs. He's absolutely mashing the ball. He's leading the league in average OBP, which is over 500. I know it's early, but getting on base half the time is high school numbers, video game numbers, Barry Bonds on steroids numbers. But he's also leading the league in OPS, so all these numbers are just looking absolutely incredible right now. He's got a perfect fielding percentage in the outfield with 39 chances, so he can't shade him or knock him there. He's looking consistent in the outfield. And he's forming this three-headed dragon with Ohtani and Trout. The Angels, they're looking decent this year. Mike Trout's looking absolutely great. Shohei's looking not as great as, they would hope so. But, the outfield with Mike Trout and Taylor Ward, they also have Brendan Marsh out there who's adding speed and fielding. That's a fantastic outfield. Probably the best outfield in baseball as of now. And it's by far the best start of Taylor Ward's career. He's gotten off to, as you've seen in the numbers, an incredibly hot start. And I'm sure Mike Trout is happy to, have some help out there because he's kind of been rotting away in, LA. I know they've added Rendon and they got Shohei a couple of years ago, but Taylor Ward's really helping him bring it together. So shout out to Taylor Ward. Next, we got a bit of a disappointing surprise this week. Hasn't really had a great year, but we're going to go to Franmil Reyes. He was 1 for 24 this week, 17 strikeouts. He leads the league in strikeouts, and his average dropped around 40 points this week. And it wasn't great to begin with. I think he's batting low 100s right now, slugging 215, OBP around 170. So his on-base percentage is 170. Taylor Ward's is around 500. Just a huge disparity in those numbers. And Franmil Reyes is an established power hitter. He's coming off a year with 30 home runs and an OPS around 850. So great numbers from a power hitter. He had a great 2020 in terms of average and on-base percentage, drawing a lot of walks. So his on-base percentage was looking great too. He's walked just 3 times this year across 79 plate appearances. A very, very bad, proportion. He's not doing great. He's, part-time DH. We all know, DH, designated hitter. It's in the job title. He needs a hit, but he's been really struggling this year. He's one of this worst years so far with an OPS plus of 14. Of course, 100 is league average. I didn't look if that was the worst, but I would assume that 14 is probably at the bottom of the league. Just very below average this year at the plate. Jose Ramirez and Owen Miller have really carried the Guardians. Jose Ramirez is arguably having one of the best years so far, up there with Taylor Ward after signing that incredible contract. Shout out to Jose Ramirez. We always got to shout him out. I feel bad leaving him off any show just because he's incredible, but I like to get different guys involved in the show anyway. But they're 10-12, and they probably should be worse. But they're around 500 because of Ramirez and Owen Miller, and they're second in the AL Central, which is looking not really great at all. But we hope Franmil Reyes can, do some magic, figure out something, rub some different pine tar on his bat, change his batting gloves, change his at-bat routine, you know what I'm saying? Just something to, get that bat back, back in that power, get that power bat back, get some pop back in that bat, do some things for the Guardians. So shout out Franmil Reyes, but a sad shout out for Franmil Reyes. Then we're going to go to Zach Gallen of the Arizona Diamondbacks, another stud pitcher for the Diamondbacks this year. He earned his first win against the Marlins through Through 6 1/3 innings, only allowed 2 runs and struck out 5. His ERA now sits at 1.27 with a whip of 0.7, so stellar numbers. Against the Dodgers, he's through 6 innings with no earned runs and 5 strikeouts, and the Dodgers are still the favorites. They're the top of the power rankings, so to do that against a great team is incredible. He held Freddie Freeman, Cody Bellinger, and Max Muncy hitless. I know Max Muncy's not having a great year, but Cody Bellinger's having a decent year. Freddie Freeman's having a great year, his first year in LA. So just to hold those guys hitless is, it's a feat on its own. He did not get the win because he didn't get enough run support, but he did outpitch Julio Urias, who's having, an all right, decent start to his year this year. He led the Diamondbacks that game to one of the 2 wins over the Dodgers. As we mentioned before, the bad beats. The Dodgers dropped 2 to the Diamondbacks. He joins Merrill Kelly as one of the standout duos in a pitching rotation this year. Very surprising for them. Very surprising start for the Diamondbacks in general. I thought they were going to be not as good, but, they're proving me wrong. So also, shout out to the Diamondbacks. Last year, Zach Gallen went 4 for 10 with a 4.30 ERA, so not great numbers. He's young, but he's really showing improvement this year. His career record is sitting at 10-18 still. That should just show you that, he's coming from, he dug himself a deep hole earlier in his career, but he's really trying to dig himself out of it this year. He has an 0-0 record this year with an ERA of 0.60 and 14 strikeouts across 15 innings. Not a big strikeout guy, but once again, getting the job done. And he has a small sample size, 15 innings. It's early in the season, like we like to say about everyone. Not trying to jump to conclusions, but he's showing great promise as that team's number 1, jumping over Madison Bumgarner and paired up with Merrill Kelly. So shout out to Zach Gallen. We're praying for you, Franmil Reyes, and also shout out to Taylor Ward. All you guys, you 2 guys are doing great things, and Franmil, we just hope you can get back to that form. So we're going to hit the prospect spotlight of the week. We're looking at two guys doing great things. We got 2 guys in single A. I was looking through the statistics, and these guys were really, really impressed me, although they are at single A. But we'll get into that next. We got our prospect spotlight of the week. We are looking at 2 young men doing great things in high A, as I said before. Starting out with Robert Hassell III. He's the Padres' second best prospect and the 35th prospect in the entire MLB. He's playing with the high A Fort Wayne Tin Caps. As I said before, I just love the minor league and affiliate league names like the Tin Caps, Ferry Hawks, and Honey Eaters. So shout out to those teams' marketing teams for really capturing my attention. This week, Hassell is 8 for 22 with a double, a home run, and 5 RBIs. Most of these impressive stats came from a very impressive game against the Dayton Dragons on April 30th. He was 4 for 5 with a double, home run, 4 RBIs, and he had all of his team's RBIs because they ended up scoring 5 runs, but they scored the other run it was an unearned run. So really shouldering the load for the Tin Caps. He was selected 8th in 2020 by the Padres. In 2021, he hit over 300 with 33 doubles and 34 stolen bases between low A and high A in Fort Wayne, where he is right now. He's batting .388 this year with a 1.063 OPS in 20 RBIs in 21 games. So getting around an RBI every game, and he's nicknamed Bobby Barrels. You can't get a nickname like Bobby Barrels unless you're hitting at least over 300. At least 400, we'll go and say it. But he's having a great year this year. He was compared to Christian Pache, also compared to Christian Yelich, but I don't know if we're going to go there yet. But he is an aggressive gap hitter like Pache with incredible speed and sneaky power. Pache, not as much known for his hitting right now, but did show flashes of great hitting when he was in the minors. It's tough. When you're coming up, you gotta make strides. You gotta progress once you get to the MLB. You're not just gonna start out looking great at the plate because hitting's the hardest thing to do in sports, as we always say. But he is comparative to Christian Pache. And a fun fact, he also played against Monet Davis in Little League World Series. Remember Monet Davis? Shout out to another woman in sports who made absolute strides, played absolute great, shut down hitters. Monet Davis was just an absolute hero, and she was an icon. I remember watching back in the day. Was just an icon on ESPN and just doing great things in terms of baseball. Next, we're going to Matthew Liberatore. I think that's how you say it. Cardinals number 3 prospect, and he's their top pitching prospect. He's the 41st prospect in the MLB. He plays with AAA. AAA Memphis Redbirds. This week he was 1-0 with 7 innings pitched, 4 hits, 7 Ks, and 0 earned run against the famous Durham Bulls, like from the movies and such. Everyone loves sports movies. My favorite sports movie is probably Major League because Charlie Sheen's an absolute animal. But that's besides the point. He had a great, Matthew Liberatore had a great 2019 in single A, going 6-2 with a 3.10 ERA. He slowed down last year because he did make that jump to AAA. He went 9-9 with a 4.04. So, not terrible numbers, but you do like to see improvement from him this year. He was selected 16th overall in 2018 by the Rays. He was a shutdown pitcher in 2019 in single A, as I said, going 6-2 with a 3.10 ERA. But he was then traded to the Cardinals in the Randy Arozarena trade. So look, the trade's looking pretty good for both sides. Arozarena's not having a stellar start to his year this year, but both are young guys that are doing a great job in their respective roles. And he's been compared to the pitcher Mike Minor, who can be of all-star form, a tall lefty, not a big strikeout guy, but doesn't walk people either. So shout out to Matthew Liberatore and to Robert Hassel III. I believe I said they were both in single A before, but Robert Hassel is in high A and Liberatore is in triple A with the Memphis Redbirds, as I said. So, pardon my mistake, but still, shout out to those two guys for absolutely flashing leather, flashing the bat, and Liberatore with having an absolute cannon of an arm on the mound so far this week. Next, we're going to go to our social media moments. We are jumping into our social media moment of the day. It's a moment that caught everyone's attention on Instagram, Twitter, whatever. Could be a meme, could be just a breaking story, could be anything baseball that is entertaining for me, at least. I hope you find them entertaining. So this is kind of an extension of the moments from, I think it was in the news last week of Miles Straw, what happened with the Yankee fans. We finally got to see what Miles Straw said to the fans. Just to recap, it was the debacle with the Yankees fans throwing garbage and yelling at the Guardians outfield after Stephen Kwan got injured. The crowd was, from what the Guardians outfield said, the crowd was rude. They were cheering for Kim, who was bleeding and who was injured in the outfield after running into the wall. You saw in a video that Miles Straw actually climbed the wall and was like face to face with a couple of fans. And apparently he told the fans to explicit hit him. He wanted them to hit him, like as in punch him or whatever. And the fans were then heard egging him on, just like say, "Oh, you're bad, bro." Like, wow, I've never And then Terry Francona stood up for Miles Straw for like sticking up for Stephen Kwan and whatnot. But this moment, it was like they're like everyone involved in that situation is like a high schooler or something. They're like, "Yo, you're mad, bro. Like, hit me." Like, he's not gonna hate you. Like, if a fan punches Miles Straw, like that fan's going to be like ejected and like probably going to jail. So he's not going to hit you. And then you have the fan saying like, "Oh, you're mad, bro." Like, yeah, I mean, he is angry because you're cheering for an injury and whatnot. Excuse me. An injury and whatnot. Also, that voice crack resembles that these people sound like middle schoolers. So that was all planned. Don't worry about it. But just back to the point, like, I don't know, both groups here know that the other group's not going to be, escalating it with, physically and violently. So it's just a whole bunch of, talking, and it's just, it's not good for the game, of course, but just definitely an odd situation, if you ask me. But we're going to the next social media moment, which is Ben Joyce throwing 105.5 miles per hour. He is a University of Tennessee relief pitcher. and he threw the hardest pitch in NCAA history at 105.5, as I said. He broke his own record from March when he threw 104, so just electric stuff off of the mound. Of course, Aroldis Chapman has the fastest pitch ever recorded at 105.8 in 2010. I believe the scoreboard, because it doesn't go to that significant digits. Shout out to high school chemistry. Significant figures. It only goes to the whole number. It was 106 on the scoreboard, but it was officially clocked in at 105.8 in 2010. And shout out to Aroldis Chapman for the Yankees. Didn't even get the closing role yesterday. That went to Chad Green. So I don't know what Aroldis Chapman's doing right now, but back to Ben Joyce. He was redshirting last year after coming over from Walters State Community College. That's an interesting name. Awesome to see like someone coming from community college absolutely tearing it up at a Power 5 school. And Tennessee is one of the better schools. I think it's one of the best schools in the country right now in baseball. Through 21 innings this year, he has an ERA under 0.9 and a WHIP under 0.72. He's a relief pitcher, so not getting a ton of innings, but still minimizing those numbers over those short innings is very hard to do. And he's projected to be a top 100 pick. And he is of great value because, the MLB loves like this fire, these hard throwers coming out of the bullpen. So he will find a spot on an MLB roster. So shout out to Ben Joyce, and, maybe Miles Straw and the fans can kind of grow up a bit. But that's just my 2 cents on that situation. Next, we are going to go to Today in History. We got a busy one going back to 1869 and coming all the way up to 2018. So we'll be back after this. Of course, we are jumping into our Today in MLB History. You might have heard some grounds crewmen outside, but I went out there and I said, hey, we're filming a podcast down here. That's not what I did, but they just went away. But anyway, back to Today in History. 1869 is where we start. We got the Cincinnati Red Stockings becoming the first all-pro baseball team. They were part of the NABBP, which is a lot less catchier and easier to say than the MLB. And that stood for the National Association of Baseball Players. Very formal. I enjoy it. Harry Wright organized the team. They had 10 men on salary for 8 months from March to November, so they only had one bench player. So if 2 people got hurt, I guess you're kind of out of luck. Harry Wright, the owner of the team, also played center field, and his younger brother George Wright played shortstop and was the best player on the team, and apparently said he was the best player of the times. So one of the best players in the NABBP back then. They, for their first game on this date, was a 45-9 victory over the Great Westerns of Cincinnati. We saw a Pirates game, Cubs-Pirates, it was 21-0, and I was like, that's an unreal score. And 45-9 is more of a football score and more of an unreal score than that. So I would imagine that a lot of those people really didn't know how to play baseball, and everyone says, like, in the old MLB and MLB, they're playing against janitors. Like, they probably were playing against janitors because they probably weren't getting paid anything. It was probably like recreational baseball, but they went on to finish the season 57-0 and the only perfect baseball team ever. I don't know how legitimate that is. They went 57-0 in their league. I think they lost some other games like out of their league when they were traveling. But 57-0, it's pretty incredible if you're going to go undefeated in any season. I know it's been done in the NFL once with the baseball mode with the Miami Dolphins. But I don't think you're going to see that in the MLB this year, not even in video games. Too many games, 162 games. If you win 162 games in a row, you should probably just like be the president or like God or whatnot. I don't even know. And they visited teams from Boston all the way to San Francisco, so, covering a lot of the United States. And it was the first kind of league of its kind to cover like this wide array of different areas in the United States. So shout out to the Red Stockings getting that first win. 1975, we go to next with the 1 millionth run scored in MLB history. That was scored by Bob Watson of the Astros. Watson was on second base and scored on a Milt May 3-run home run. I don't know why we don't like congratulate Milt May more, like he hit the ball, but I guess Watson did score the millionth run himself, and his teammates were yelling at him to go faster because at the same time, the Reds' Dave Concepcion hit a home run in another game and was sprinting around the bases because he wanted to score the millionth run. Watson inevitably did score the winning run. He got there apparently seconds before because, real life is a movie sometimes. And Watson's shoes and his uniform were sent to the Hall of Fame, and so was Milt May's bat. So I guess Milt May does get some recognition in the sense that his bat is enshrined in Cooperstown. The 1 millionth hit was also sponsored by Tootsie Roll, which I don't know if I know anyone that likes Tootsie Rolls. It's kind of just like the bottom of the bag candy in Halloween when you're like, I guess I'll eat them and rip my teeth out of my mouth. But Watson won 1 million Tootsie Rolls. He gave half to the Boy Scouts of America, the other half to the Girl Scouts of America. I'm not sure if they sold them to make money or they just ate them, but I guess it was probably one of the better candies back in the day. I can't even eat like 3 of them, let alone eating 500,000 for each of those two groups. He also was given 1 million pennies, and back then was $10,000, and he donated this money. So just a really cool promotion for the MLB to do that, and shout out to Bob Watson for being really giving and with his money and his Tootsie Rolls. I'd be pretty giving with my Tootsie Rolls too, because I wouldn't want to eat any of them, but that's my personal experience. We travel all the way to 2018, where we have Albert Pujols' his 3,000th hit. He lined a single to right field off the Mariners pitcher Mike Leake for his 3,000th hit in the 5th inning. He was the 32nd player to reach 3,000 hits right after Adrian Beltre, two of the guys that you just remember. I remember watching, just absolutely deadly hitters, Pujols and Adrian Beltre. I remember Adrian Beltre hit a home run off the Red Sox over the Green Monster where he went to a knee, and I was like, that's like the most badass thing I've ever seen from a baseball player. But we're talking about Albert Pujols now. Mike Trout and his teammates came out to celebrate with Albert Pujols. They stopped the game and whatnot. After the game, the Angels, they toasted the champagne, with Albert Pujols, similar to what Miguel Cabrera and his teammates did. So, it's a really historic moment. Break out the champagne, pop the bottles, pour it all over Albert Pujols. Prior to the game, Albert Pujols spent time with Ichiro, who was also 3,000 hit, but he was retired at that point. They were just chatting it up in Seattle. Pujols and Rod Carew are the only players to get 3,000 hits in an Angels uniform. So those two guys are really, we know Rod Carew, we know Albert Pujols, some of the better hitters, some of the best hitters of all time. And, I bet the Angels are blessed to, have 2 Hall of Famers, soon to be Hall of Famer, and Albert Pujols, do it in their uniform, represent their city well, represent that team very well. Pujols received a $3 million bonus, kind of like, an incentive in the NBA for getting that hit. And that bonus is $3 million is actually worth more than his contract he just signed in St. Louis for $2.5 million. But I do understand that is a pretty incredible feat, $3 million for 3,000. And now he sits at 3,310 hits and 681 home runs, and he is back in St. Louis. So I say shout out a lot, but I just love these players. I want them to get the recognition they deserve. But shout out to Albert Pujols for getting that 3,000th hit, and staying important, staying productive in the MLB, and being back in St. Louis with his team that he grew up, absolutely clubbing with. Also, we go to some deaths, some sad moments that we're going to travel back for. We have Bob Elliott's death, who I covered with James Gordon, and I asked him to bring a player throughout history, a random player throughout history, and it actually was Bob Elliott. He went by his nickname Mr. Team, which I actually enjoyed a lot when he was in Boston. He passed away from a ruptured vein in his windpipe. Don't know how that happened. Couldn't find any details on that, but sounds painful. Just a shame. He died very young. He's in the Boston Braves Hall of Fame. He was the 1947 NL MVP. He retired with the highest slugging percentage of any NL third baseman. He led the NL in putouts twice and assists 3 times, and he was also a 7-time All-Star. Did great things for the Boston Braves. MVP, great hitter, great fielder, one of the better third basemen of his time when he retired. So rest in peace, Bob Elliott. The Then we go to 2010 with Ernie Harwell, the legendary sportscaster. He died in 2010 on this date. He had a long career as a play-by-play announcer, spent 55 seasons in the MLB and minor leagues doing play-by-play, spent 42 seasons of those. 42 of those seasons with the Detroit Tigers on TV and radio. He had 2 stints with the Tigers between 1960 and 1999, or 1991, I think, and then 1993 to 2002. He announced the 1951 NL tiebreaker between the Giants and the Dodgers, which ended with the shot heard round the world home run by Bobby Thompson. He called the 1984 World Series locally for the Tigers, which the Tigers won, which was their last World Series win because they don't look like they're getting another World Series, in these coming years. But you don't know, you never know. He was known for his Southern accent and phrases like, I found these funny. He's talking about strikeouts here. He stood there like a house by the side of the road and watched it go by. I guess houses do stand. They do stand, so that does make sense. And then this one is funnier. He says when someone struck out, they're called out for excessive window shopping. That's very creative. That sounds like a call that will withstand the test of time. I thought that one was very funny. I'll use that if I ever become a play-by-play or a sports announcer or on the podcast. He also had a stadium named after him as part of an outreach program with Wayne State University. The Tigers honored him after his death in 2010 with patches on their shoulders in black and white lettering. Fun fact, he was also the only broadcaster ever traded for a player. Similar to Babe Ruth and selling the rights of a play and money. We don't see that broadcaster ever getting traded for a player. I guess he's just very good at his job. He was an announcer for the AA Atlanta Crackers, and they traded him to the AAA Montreal Royals, Cliff Dapper. So I hope one day I'm a good enough journalist, a good enough announcer, maybe play-by-play guy that I can get traded for a player, because that would probably mean I'm a millionaire. But I don't think that's ever going to happen again. So Ernie Harwell will keep that record and will always be known for, his broadcasting ability, what he meant to Detroit, and just being an incredible broadcaster. So, rest in peace, Ernie Harwell and Bob Elliott. And next, we're going to go to our obscure athlete to end the show on a bit of a brighter note. We'll be right back. Close out the show. As always, we got our obscure athlete player throughout history. And today we have Andy Van Slyke. He was drafted out of high school in 1979, 6th overall to the Cardinals, and that's pretty incredible. I remember my high school coach was drafted in the 6th round out of high school, and that was an incredible feat. And this guy, and Mr. Van Slyke, was drafted 6th overall out of high school. I guess it was a different time, but, that's incredible. He made his major league debut in 1983. He played with the Cardinals, Pirates, Orioles, and the Phillies. Orioles and Phillies for a year each at the end of his career, most notably known for his time with the Cardinals and Pirates. Primarily a right fielder, did play some infield. He was a 3-time All-Star, 5-time Gold Glover, 2-time Silver Slugger winner. He led the league in hits once, doubles once, and triples once. So, he's spraying the field. He's doing different types of hitting, power hitting, contact hitting. He can do it all. Career 274 batting average. Not quite Hall of Fame, as we'll get to, but 274 is still very solid. He had a .987 fielding percentage, which is I would consider pretty Hall of Fame. He coached for the Tigers as well as the Mariners after he retired. When he retired in 2001, he became eligible for the Hall of Fame. He received no votes and therefore was off the ballot because I believe you need to receive a certain percentage of votes to remain on the ballot for those eligibility years. But he is eligible for the Veterans Committee, which you can vote players in that are not voted by the other votes. His son Scott played for the Dodgers and in the South Korean League, and his son Scott is well known for having a standoff with pitcher Joe Kelly in the 2013 NLCS Game 6 when Joe Kelly was on the Cardinals. And it was funny because the standoff where they both stand there and the last one, it's usually after the national anthem. They usually stand there, like the last one to go in the dugout wins, and it's really has no impact on the game, besides really stalling the game. But the umpire actually had to intervene. He actually had to tell both guys to go to the dugout because they were standing out there too long. Joe Kelly took a step towards the dugout, and Scott Van Slyke announced himself the winner, but Joe Kelly actually stopped, and Van Slyke actually went in the dugout earlier. But we'll call them both winners. His other son, Jared, was a defensive back at the University of Michigan. So, playing football, it's in the genes, just an absolute athletic family, absolute athletic unit of a family. His other son, AJ, played baseball at Kansas, University of Kansas, and he was in the Cardinals minor league system. So he followed after Pop and made it to the Cardinals minor league team. Andy Van Slyke had a great arm in his playing days, and in Three Rivers Stadium, when he was playing, they actually named the right field gap the Slyke Zone because he would often hose people out from right field. And he was just a stellar fielder, and he pretty much owned the outfield as he had it named after him. So congratulations to Andy Van Slyke for making it on the Back in the Dugout podcast. I'm sure you're excited. I'm sure this is your crowning achievement of your career. You've made it into the Back in the Dugout Hall of Fame. Don't worry. Unanimous decision, unanimous ballot. It's only me, so one vote for you. You made it. So congratulations, Andy Van Slyke. So thank you guys for watching. That's all I have for today. Always thank you to Tunnel Vision Sports and Stephen Hayes and the editing team for putting this all together, giving me the opportunity, and just, being such a great platform for journalists. Follow us on Instagram at BITD podcast, all one word. Follow me on Twitter at JakeIL3, where I will post pics and primarily Back in the Dugout Twitter. And then follow Tunnel Vision Sports on Spotify at TVS Network, 2 words. Same for Apple Podcast and same for YouTube. So thank you guys once again, and I will see you next week with Back in the Dugout with more baseball news and more baseball history and anything baseball, whatever you want. So see you from College Park, and I'm your host, Jake Aiello. Have a good one, guys.